almost a decade removed from Rousey, but we're actually closer to 17 years removed from Gina Carano's last fight. I mean, like, I have a nephew who's 21 years old. He probably only knows Gina Carano from movies.
Welcome to First Strike, only on VSiN, the sports betting network. Here's your hosts, Dave Ross and Rob Moreno.
We are back, First Strike here on VSiN. Dave Ross, Rob Moreno coming at you here as we get ready for an interesting card coming up at UFC Apex this weekend. UFC Vegas 117 main event here is going to be Arnold Allen against Costa here. But Rob, before we look ahead to this week's card, we do have to look back to what we saw last weekend, because on this very show a week ago, we're sitting here looking at the main event, Sean Strickland against Khamzat Chimaev, and I think we're looking at it going, man, we've seen Sean Strickland as a massive underdog do this not once, but twice, several times in his career, and he does it again, Rob, where he pulls a rabbit out of his hat and he cashes as a massive underdog here and is the new, now two-time middleweight champion of the world. Before we get to the monetary figures of it and the big plus money side, what did you make of the decision? Did you agree that Strickland should have got his arm raised here in a split decision victory?
So I haven't watched it a second time, but watching live heading into the fifth round, I thought there was potential that Chimaev had stolen maybe a third. You know, I knew he won the first round, and then it was rounds 3 and 4 that were kind of the toss-up to me, especially because they were very jab heavy. Both of them were landing very strong jabs only, so it's hard to judge. So I thought maybe there was potential, but equally I thought, or this is probably 2-2 going into the fifth. And so I wasn't exactly shocked at the result. I mean, Chimaev just looked so out of sorts in that. I don't disagree with the decision. I mean, it was a split decision, so obviously judges even saw it very two different ways. What about you? Did you agree with the decision when Strickland's hand got raised and knew?
I had no problem, and I tweeted in real time before the decision. I said, this is 48-47 somebody, and I'm not going to be mad at whichever arm gets raised, right? I thought the fight was that close, and I'm just blown away, and I know it's social media and Twitter's not real life. When you see people outraged by the decision on the Chimaev side, I'm like, did I watch a different fight? That thing was razor thin either way. And the judges' scorecards reflected it, Rob. It was literally 48-47, and the final round, 2 judges gave it to Strickland, 1 gave it to Chimaev. That was the difference of the fight. And I thought the fifth round was really close. I did. So I gave a slight edge to Strickland, but if Chimaev has gotten his name and it was and still, I was going to say the same thing, that, yeah, the fight was razor thin. It gets back to the DDP championship fight in Canada the first time. I really thought Strickland won that fight. It was a split decision that went to DDP's way, but I couldn't be up in arms about it that it didn't go Sean Strickland's way. And the same thing would have been true here on Saturday night. And by the way, from a betting perspective, that's where I was on the over 2.5. You know me, I banged that over pretty heavily at 2.5 and 3.5 at plus money. And in the first round, I wasn't even nervous. When he took him down 30 seconds into the fight, I was like, that's exactly what I think Sean thought was going to happen. Khamzat thought was going to happen. No damage was incurred in 5 minutes or 4.5 minutes on the ground. It was a perfect strategy for an over. To be honest with you, I got nervy in the second round. I thought Sean Strickland might knock out Chimaev, kind of like Gilbert Burns almost did many moons ago.
I thought Chimaev got hurt.
Yes.
The way he pulled guard, just kind of flopped over. I was like, oh no, he's hurt. He's hurt.
Right.
Something happened.
What is that?
Something popped. His shoulder popped. We got another shoulder injury on our hands. But no, he was just tired, I guess.
Yeah, once he pulled guard, I went, this is very odd here. So I was like, Sean, don't knock him out too soon here. Let's carry this thing along. Luckily, we cashed all those overs. And again, that's why we do the show, though, Rob, is to try to identify different ways. If you didn't like the side, and I did not like the side at the price points that were being offered, it was dog or pass, that I thought that the total was the way to attack it. In the co-main event, guilty as charged. I was on the Tetsuro Taira side here. I love Taira in that fight. And after the first round, ironically, in that fight, I went, oh, I'm halfway home, baby. This is like stealing candy from a baby. And then props to Joshua Van. The second round, I thought he was losing the second round again, and Taira let him up, which was very interesting to me when he had him in control, but he was looking to submit, then he couldn't. So it was almost like, all right, let's get back to the feet. And Joshua Van hits him with a right hand that changed the whole trajectory of that fight and really sat him down. And that's when I went, uh-oh, we're in for a dogfight. Then I thought Tyra was out in the third round. He wasn't. It became a real dogfight. I had a 2-2 going to the fifth. I thought they stopped it a little bit early, but Van clearly looked like he was on his way to a victory.
Yeah, props to Josh Van. I mean, my God. And actually, props to both men because Tyra showed some toughness, man. He was getting his head rocked off. But you're right. I thought Tyra had this going his way. I was like, man, the grappling edge is night and day. And I will say, Van needs to work on that if he's going to remain champion. But Tyra gave him everything he had on the ground, had him in a couple dangerous positions. But you're right. Once he got dropped in that third round, I believe you said, everything changed on a dime, and it started going Van's way. And you're right. I saw a 2-2 going into the fifth, and, Van took care of business. Was it early? I understand the argument for it, but, and I said this on Twitter, I think sometimes we're saving these guys from their own toughness.
Sure.
Tyra would have probably never actually gone out, but
no.
The amount of shots he was absorbing over the accumulation of that fight, especially there in that fifth round, he was really just pulling him away from what was inevitable at that point, was the inevitable TKO. And, you're right. I was also strongly on Tyra. I didn't end up betting the fight, but I liked Tyra's side so much. I was on with you guys. There's nothing I saw from Van that I thought was really going to be the problem. Kind of like the main event, I stayed away just because of the price points. I didn't like the price points on the favorites. Luckily, I saved some bank there because I would have had 2 losses there. But wow, two great title fights last week.
And I want to make this point here on First Strike. And sometimes I can be guilty of this, and I was in this respect. I had a great card, and I had a lot of things closing on the Tyra side. And I did not hedge to the Joshua Van side and easily could have racked up more profit. But I was so confident. And we talk about this courage of your conviction on what you think is going to happen. And again, after that first round, I felt like a genius, right? And then after the second round, I went, oh no, why didn't I take some shares here on the Van side? I did have the over. So Tyrek easily could have been stopped in that third round. And a lot of the judges had a 10-8 for Joshua Van in that big third round. So I was happy that he survived. And then to win the fourth round was stunning to see Tyra flip the fight back. And so, ironically, had he won the fifth round, Rob, it was going to be a majority draw because 2 judges gave Van a 10-8 in that third round. So I think the lesson to be learned here, people, is if you've got a lot of tickets that are going to close on whether it's a 3-leg, 2-leg parlay, 4-leg parlay, like I had on the Tetsuro Tyra side, do not be hesitant to take a profit. Our old buddy Amal Shaw that I used to work with here at VSiN used to say, you'll never go broke taking a profit. I got a little bit greedy for my own good, and I think that should be a lesson to people out there. If you nail out of the early fights, as I did on that card, do not be afraid to give a little bit of back to make sure you bankroll a little bit more. Hey, it was still a profitable night, but it could have been more profitable if I wasn't so tied to the Tetsuro Tyra side.
I still say that every day from Amal. I still, we used to hang out in the studio back when he was doing odds on with Mike Palm over there at Circa. And he used to say that all the time. You won't go broke making a profit. And that's kind of how I treated my night as well. Heading into, I had the bet on Waldo Cortez Costa right there, right before the first title fight. Didn't get that one home. I thought Volkov fought a very smart fight, just avoided giving Waldo any chaos. But that was my only loss on my betting card, and I locked in profit already. I was 2-1 on my bets, and I wanted to get it on the co-main, but I didn't have that strong conviction. I was like, you know what? I can walk away from the night in the profit, in the green. Let's just enjoy the last 2 fights instead of trying to get greedy, like you said, thinking, you know what? I think Tyra's got this. I'm sure Chimaev can find an inside the distance. Let me lock in all these bets. No, I stayed away, and I was like, wow, I would have been very wrong, and I would have been in the negative for the night instead.
I will say this. I did not take any Strickland sides because I was rooting for our buddy Zaid Hussein, who we had on the program last week. He had obviously a big play on Chimaev inside the distance, but my biggest play, as you well know, was the over. So that would really made it a profitable night in the main event. And again, that's the respect play that we talk about a lot in this program. The respect play I have for the fighter that is Sean Strickland, that I just knew he would intelligently defend off his back as he did in the first round. And then, as you pointed out, to see Chimaev pull guard in the second round, like, what is that? We've never seen Chimaev on his back, and we saw it there. It was fascinating to watch Sean dominate him in the second round on the ground. That was stunning. And then, by the way,
it's like he just disappeared that round.
What was that? It's still curious as to
I thought he was gassed.
Yeah,
due to the weight cut. Like, I was like, okay, he's gassed, but I was like, man, this is the second round. How is he going to bounce back? And then he kind of had an okay rest of the fight. He just decided not to really go to the ground game again. He kind of did the same. Strickland did the same thing he did to Fluffy. We talked about it. Like, is that possible? And he kind of did the same thing. He gave him enough trouble on the ground to make him get into a stand-up fight with him, and it ended up being the game changer. It was a crazy fight to watch.
It really wasn't. It was two spectacular title fights in different regards here. But again, Sean Strickland and new again, and still on the Joshua Vance side. So we appreciate everybody that listened to that. And by the way, I saw some early numbers because remember, it looked like Chimaev was going to move up now to light heavyweight. And now it sounds like the organization wants a rematch against Strickland. I'm seeing about Chimaev, a very small favorite in a potential rematch against Strickland. So think about how those numbers are going to change here from what we saw as a $5 betting favorite. I'm seeing as small as $1.20 out there. Fascinating to see that. And again, we would think, all right, maybe would be the time to back Chimaev in this respective rematch. These guys know each other so well from training with each other. I don't know that I'd be hopping on there, but I would say this. I think the one thing we should remember, Chimaev held his own on the hands game with Sean. So not only did Strickland hold his own on the ground with Chimaev, Chimaev held his own with the boxer striker that is Sean Strickland. So those guys, to me, are as even as it gets, and I think the odds potentially in a rematch reflect it.
That'll be a fun one. I'm kind of happier they'll do the rematch first before Chimaev moves up in weight. Just because I want to see what Chimaev could have done as a champion. Not saying I think he wins again, but he was so dominant in his run being undefeated. It's kind of sad to just see him leave the division just like that. So it's like, hey, let's run it back. Let's see what we get. I'm curious if he shows up. I'm not saying he was unprepared, but shows up much more conditioned for this. There was the rumors that he was going to fight Yuri a couple months ago, and that's why he was bulked up to 205 kind of, and now needing to cut. He needed like 40 pounds in like the last 48 hours or something ridiculous.
And he did not make weight. Like, let's be honest about that, people. Like, you can say he did not make weight, right? So
he looked really bad on the scale.
He looked terrible on the scales, and I think that certainly made us feel better. I know I felt better about the overplays here once I saw that on the scale. You're right, though. The conditioning is if you're gonna stay at this weight class, that's part of the job. And we know Sean Strickland's going to be in shape. And he was in great shape again, as he was against Adesanya, certainly as he was against Fluffy Hernandez, and now cashes another big ticket as another massive underdog here in the main event. It's fascinating here, the rise of Sean Strickland once again. All right, let's come back. Let's talk about the main card here this weekend with Arnold Allen against Melquizael Costa. And again, a different card, obviously, when you come off the heels of a two-title fight like we had last week against Newark, but we're still going to find value. So come on back. We'll get to those numbers next right here on First Strike.
You're tuned in to First Strike, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We are back. First Strike here on VSiN. Dave Ross and Rob Moreno coming at you. And Rob, no better time than the present right now to become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Great deals that we have out there. There's one offer for 14 months. It's basically less than 50 cents a day. That'll cover you through everything. If you just want to do it by the month, $9.99 is an intro offer here. So whatever fits your price point, we've got you covered at VSiN.com. I will say this, Rob, I'm so pumped up for the PGA Championship this week. Got a lot of plays out there, not just UFC plays when you become a VSiN Pro subscriber. So no better time than the present to subscribe.
Check out those long shots, boys. They've got the championship covered. So like I said, we've got a guy, and for golf, we've got a couple guys. So we definitely got you covered there. Check out their podcast, check out their YouTube, but definitely check out VSiN.com. It's a great time to subscribe because, as you've mentioned, the NFL is right around the corner. And hey, we've got an NFL release schedule special coming up this Thursday for VSiN Primetime. So there's tons to check out at VSiN.
As my brother-in-law Linwood said to me years ago, he said, David, you need three things in life. You need a good woman, you need a good accountant, and you need a good mechanic. I'm still looking for all three, but we'll find out. We always got a guy, though, at VSiN that's got something for you, whether it's golf, UFC, or otherwise, my man. Let's get into this card a little bit here with Arnold Allen against Melquizael Costa. And, Allen's an interesting guy because I felt like the star was on the rise, then a couple hiccups here in the UFC, and he comes back and he's a betting favorite here on a smaller card here, UFC Vegas 117. What do we make of the Englishman here still as the betting favorite against Melky?
So you're right. I kind of forgot the run that Arnold Allen kind of went on at the beginning of his UFC tenure. A 10-fight win streak in the division. but unfortunately, it earned him some good matchups, and he ended up facing Max Holloway, Movsar Evloev, and those ended up being losses. He bounced back with the win, and then got to face Gene Silva. That was another loss. So he's 1-3 in his last 4 after going on this 10-0 run. But he's still a very good fighter. Melky Costa, though's got the momentum though. He's on a quite a little streak here. 6-fight win streak. His last win was that TKO win over Dan Ige, which was very shocking because Dan Ige had never been stopped, and he put him out. So on the other side, Allen has also never been finished, by the way, or even knocked down in his entire MMA career. And as I mentioned, think about those killers that he's faced. I mean, Max Holloway, Gene Silva, dude hasn't even been knocked down. So he's got the durability. There's a reason he's so tough. When we look at the stats, XR percentages, these guys are pretty close. 60% for Allen, which kind of talks about the few losses that he's had in his last few fights. Costa, 68%, talks about the rise that he's had there. In the striking, significant strikes landed per minute, Allen only lands 3.47. Costa lands a slight higher tick at 4.38. The difference is their differentials, 0.43 for Allen, 1.42 for Costa. So Allen's absorbing just around 3 significant strikes, but Costa's landing less than 3 significant strikes per minute. So Costa's very good at avoiding that damage and just landing the shots he needs to land. So he lands a great volume. Costa, though, kind of mixes up his game plan. He actually only spends 50% of his time at distance. And while Allen, I kind of picture more as the grappler, he actually spends 74% of his time at distance. So he actually does mix in much more striking than he does the ground. But as I mentioned with the ground, his control rate is actually only at 46%, which was surprising. It's pretty low. Costa doesn't have that much greater one either. Takedown accuracy, it's only around 40 to 50% for both men. Both of them have landed 11 takedowns in the UFC. Costa has a slightly more aggressive attempt rate, so he may be the one who attempts it more often if they get to that point. But Arnold Allen, great takedown defense, 72% takedown defense. It's Costa who suffers there at 59%. And as I mentioned, the power goes to Allen, and he's got the chin to back it up, but Costa does have sneaky power as well. Running everything through the model, it's a very coin flip kind of result from the model. I'm glad you agree. It, depending on a couple ticks here and there, it's either going 54% to Costa or 54% to Allen, which for me is either a dead dog or it's a kind of a dangerous favorite. So currently, I have no bet. I do like the Costa side just simply based on momentum, and I guess, the price is, it looks okay at plus 140. The model tells me to be safe with it. He is a dead dog tier on me. It's too close of a fight for me to predict and pull the trigger on just yet. He will be in my pick'em contest. I'll be picking probably Costa as a prediction, but no bet at the moment.
By the way, I'm glad that the model sees it the way that I see it, which is dog or pass. And I have no play on this fight as of yet here, people. We had, by this time last week, you and I are firing galore and what we had in Newark. This week, not so much. And again, I saw it the same way. And I'm like, wow, this feels like it should be more of a pick 'em price. So is there value on Melky at plus $1.40? Slightly to me, that's the only way that I could play this. I love to look at the totals and a potential 5-round main event here. 4.5. It is juiced to the over here at about a minus $1.45. You want some plus money here. Plus $1.14 is the comeback that I'm seeing here in the under. To me, finishing potential says Melky, that he's got 2 ways to get you out of here. The hands, if he ends up playing the hands game with Arnold, certainly he's got enough power, but Arnold's got a really good chin, as you mentioned. But really, if he does get the fight down to the ground, that's where Melky is really dangerous and looking for submissions. So the only way that I would see that plausible, I don't know that, let's say, fresh and clean in the first round, that Melky's just going to be able to get Arnold down to the ground without hurting him with something along the way. So the way that I would potentially see an under, if you're looking to an under at plus money, would be that Melky hurts him with the hands, and then here comes the quick submission tactics, right? I'm not trying to knock you out, but if I damage you, then I can get you down to the ground, and that's where you might be fish out of water, because Allen's got really good takedown defense, but if you can get him down, I wonder if that's the problem would be for Allen. But in order to get him down, I think it would take something with the hands to do it. So it's a long way to try to get to some sort of submission. And I guess on the Allen side, is he good enough with the striking in the model to say that he can knock out Melky Costa? Because those are the two ways to get to the under here at 4.5, and I don't know that they're really plausible.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, it's very hard to see. Like, I can see a situation, like you said, his takedown defense is great for Allen, but I mean, they could be pushed up against the cage and Melky jumps on his back and they roll
Right.
to the ground. Now you're on the ground. You may not have been taken down, but now you're on the ground and now you're fighting submissions before you know it. You're right, though. I feel like that has to happen early for Costa to kind of get to that situation. You know, as you've heard in many broadcasts, submissions kind of get harder as time goes because these guys are sweatier.
Slippery. Yep.
It's slippery. The mat's especially in a main event, the mat's even slippery from all the fights from prior. So it's harder to lock that in later in a fight. So you're right. If it doesn't happen in the first 2 rounds, and I can't imagine, I mean, it's hard to say because last time I probably said the same thing if I run the tape back that there's no way Costa gets Dan Ige out of there and it's probably going to a decision, and then he knocked Dan Ige out cold. Arnold Allen's never been finished in his entire professional MMA career. He's never been dropped. But we know he's taken shots. Max Holloway,
Right.
Gene Silva, these are guys that probably should be able to put him down. I can't imagine Costa also suddenly being able to knock him down, but you never know. Sometimes the right punch just hits on the right button. But you're right. If I had to pick a way this goes, I think it goes to a decision, and I'm not sure Allen finds a way to really dominate the fight.
I agree. I see it the same way. I'm normally, intrigued by that juice on the plus side here, but I don't know if I can get there. But it would be intriguing in the clinch, as you said, if all of a sudden he finds himself, Allen, on the ground, not from a clean 2-legged takedown, double leg takedown or single leg, but something along the clinch. And Melky is very tricky with that Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And all of a sudden you find yourself defending, whether you find yourself defending and he's backpacking you standing, and then all of a sudden figures out a way to get that fight to the ground. That's where the finish could come if Melky can get the fight down to the ground. But it's a big if here, as we discussed on a Wednesday. One of the greatest nicknames, I think, in all of MMA is Korean Superboy. And so we do have Doo Ho Choi back into the octagon here against Daniel Santos. Now, here's what's interesting about this total. 2.5 here in the co-main event, juiced heavily to the under 2.5 at $1.45. And that tells me that Korean Superboy is kill or be killed. The numbers are implying here that, I mean, if you want to take a flyer on the Korean Superboy at plus $1.45 out there, I get it. But it tells me that maybe Santos is the guy to look at here and an underplay could be in play. What are the numbers showing you?
So one thing to know about Doo Ho Choi, Korean Superboy, you're right, one of the better nicknames in the UFC. He is on a 2-fight TKO streak, but that last win was in December 2024. He's taken some time off, had some, I believe, knee injuries was the reason. And even prior to that 2-fight TKO streak, he also had another big break in his fight resume due to military obligations, but
That's
also
right.
some recovering from some injuries. So there's been gaps in his MMA career. They're not due to leaving the UFC. They're just due to other obligations, as we'll say. So there is about a 2-year, not a 2-year, but a 1.5 year gap here for Doo Ho Choi returning to the cage. So there is that little bit of rust to think about. Daniel Santos, 4-fight win streak, obviously much more active. His last win was a TKO back in October. Choi will have a 3-inch reach advantage, though, when it goes to the striking. XR percentages, once again, this doesn't account for time off, but Choi does take a small nod at 64%. Santos is right behind him at 59%, so there's not a ton to really break apart between the guys. Choi lands 4.67 significant strikes per minute, Santos 4.76, so very similar there. The big difference, though, Choi positive differential at 0.65, Santos negative 0.27, meaning Santos is actually absorbing over 5 significant shocks per minute. So if this stays standing, Choi should have an advantage there. Control rate in the clinch and ground time, Choi is actually pretty low at 52%. It's Santos who kind of gets that nod at 84% control rate in clinch and ground time. So if things get close, if things hit the ground, he should be able to dominate there. Takedown accuracy, it's not high, though, for Santos. It's only 40%. So it's not exactly something he's going to be predominantly looking for. Takedown attempts, though, Santos does attempt them at a high rate, though, 4.14 per 5 minutes. So he may not be successful at it, but he's going to get in your face. He's going to try to press you up against the cage, try to create that kind of chaos and misery for you if he's able to get you down. And Santos himself has great takedown defense, 73%. So Choi, his kind of like you said, his real shot here is to stand and bang and keep the fight standing. kill or be killed. Running through the model, it lands on the dog again. It does land on Du Ho Choi, but it gives that low confidence tier.
Oh.
And that kind of causes me to hit the brakes a little bit. It's a low model school. It does give him 56% win probability percentage, but the confidence level from the model is pretty low. It is a dog or pass situation for me, I think, as well here. Kind of like you said, it's kill or be killed for Choi. I do have a little pause and reservation from the time off that he'll be coming back from, but he's done it before. We'll see how healthy he comes back, but right now it's a stay away unless maybe we wait till weigh-in day and see how he looks on the scales.
I see the same way again, just kind of like the main event here, where about the same price points here, plus $1.42 in the Korean Superboy. And again, it was Melky at plus $1.40. It would be dog or pass for me. Nothing in the account officially yet. Do want to see how he looks and the layoffs and those sort of things, because this was kind of one of those skyrocketing guys until the military obligations and the injuries. So you're always a little bit leery about what form we're getting here a couple years later for Du Ho Choi. But yeah, Santos has got to make this a dirty fight. If it's a clean fight and it stays at distance with the reach advantage, then I would like the underdog here. But again, that under 2.5, and it's juiced at $1.45 to the under, tells me there's finishing potential here. So kill or be killed could certainly be on the docket here in the co-main event. I want to see what the model says. We have a lot of women on this fight card here. And Elisa Ardolan's a $2, $2.18 betting favorite I'm seeing here against Polyana Viana. Viana, the comeback there is plus $1.80. Do we have a live dog scenario here? And again, for women's MMA, normally when you see a 2.5 round fight for, obviously it's going to be lined at 2.5 for a 3-round fight. You see these upwards of $3 or $4. I say only to the over 238, still high, but there does show that there could be some finishing potential here. What are the numbers when you run them showing you?
So this fight's pretty interesting because Ardeline, it doesn't feel like she's fought any real competition yet in the UFC. She sits at 2-2. It's a 2-fight win streak, at least for her. Her last win was against Conejo Ruiz, which I think everyone's got to win against Conejo Ruiz, unfortunately, but it was a decision win back in November. Viana, unfortunately, while I think she's fought the tougher opponents, she hasn't done much with it. She's on a 3-fight losing streak. She's 4-7 in the UFC. She really hasn't created much of a career here in the UFC just yet. She does have a 5-inch reach advantage, so she does have a little bit of size there. The XR percentages, it really does reflect what I just talked about with Viana. 45% XR percentage, so that's kind of a red flag. I mean, maybe she has faced tougher competition, but that's why strength of schedule is always so hard to measure, because she hasn't done anything against this competition. Where Ardeline, yeah, she's faced kind of nobodies in the UFC so far, but she does have a 73% XR percentage. So even though she's 2-2, so those 2 losses, she still has shown the ability to win a round, even in tough situations. Significant strikes landed per minute. Ardeline comes in with some volume. 7.35 significant strikes landed per minute. Viana, unfortunately, way down at 2.74. And I say it every time. If you're not landing at least 3 significant strikes per minute, I hope you do something else very, very well. She does avoid damage as well. So even though she lands 2.74, she actually absorbs 2.50. So she is avoiding damage, but the amount of volume that's going to come from Ardeline is my concern, because there's a lot more coming at you now, and can you avoid that type of striking? Ardeline will look to keep it striking too. Her time at distance is at 85%. She also has great control rate in clinch and ground time, 87% for Ardeline, whereas Viana, kind of like I mentioned, if you're not going to strike over 3 significant strikes per minute, what else can you do well? Well, Viana's control rate is down at 13%. So even if this fight gets in the clinch on the ground, she apparently cannot have any advantage there. I believe she's controlled on the ground about 51% of the time. So if it gets to the ground, she's in losing positions most of the time. Ardeline only has 4 takedowns, but it's most likely not where she's looking to get this fight done. She's going to look to keep it standing. She has great takedown defense herself, too, 86%. Viana's down at 35%. Like, there's not a lot to write home about for Polyana Viana.
Yeah.
So the model, honestly, it's a very clean decision towards Alice Ardeline. 70% win probability. Now, you mentioned the odds. Minus 200, at least yesterday, was minus 200. There was a tiny bit of edge there. Minus 218, that edge is starting to shrink. It's a small betting card for me.
Yep.
I don't think I'll put her at minus 218 on my betting card. might have been able to find my way there at -200 just because I don't really have a lot of else going on the fight card. I don't always recommend that. But Ardeline by decision, -115 is probably the best and most predictable way. Ardeline doesn't have any finishes in the UFC. Vienna's been finished, but Ardeline just doesn't seem to have that kind of pop in the women's division in order to get that done. I think she just kind of gets the striking done, gets the outscoring for the decision.
Well, let me see if this would pique your interest a little bit, Rob, since it's a light betting card for you and I. If we like Ardelie in there, but we're not overly enamored with the 218, maybe a parlay with another women's MMA fighter this weekend in Ronda Rousey. Oh, yes, we've got another fight coming up here, Rob. It's Ronda Rousey, yes, Year of Our Lord 2026, back in MMA. It's going to take on Gina Carano, one of the founding women when it comes to women's mixed martial arts. Both these ladies are pioneers, as we well know, in women's MMA. And this is going to be a new promotion that we're seeing, MVP 1. So we'll see how long, if there's any traction here for this. But if you're looking for other things to bet, look, Ronda's a massive favorite in this fight. She's over a $5 betting favorite against Gina Carano. How do we view this fight almost a decade removed from watching these women do their thing inside of an octagon?
First of all, great transition. Bravo.
Thank you.
I was curious I was like, a parlay. I was like, I know there's other women fights, but none of them look that interesting. So bravo. You're right. MVP MMA 1, the first ever Netflix MMA card, headlined by Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano in, as you mentioned, the year 2026. It's crazy to think about.
It is.
It is a hard matchup to think about and break down because we are almost a decade removed from Rousey, but we're actually closer to 17 years removed from Gina Carano's last fight.
Wow.
I mean, like, I have a nephew who's 21 years old. He probably only knows Gina Carano from movies and like TV shows. Like,
right.
He has no clue probably that she used to beat up and get beat up in
Right.
I guess not the octagon, but the cage. But so Ronda Rousey, she finished her MMA career 12-2. We always remember those 2 losses though, Holly Holmes and Amanda Nunes.
That's all we remember.
It's all we remember, unfortunately. But that last fight was UFC 207 knockout loss, Amanda Nunes, December 30th, 2016, back when the UFC used to do those cool New Year's Eve cards.
Yes.
But yeah, that was like 9.5 years ago. Gina Carano, only 7-1. She only had 8 MMA fights, professional MMA fights. But, you know, we do raise her as kind of like that first women's entry into women's MMA. She was the first that probably anyone talked about, right? Elite XFC, Strikeforce. She was that face. She had 1 submission win, 3 knockouts. She was definitely much more of a striker. Her last fight was 2009, August 2009, kids.
Oh my
about 17 years. And that was also a TKO loss to Chris Cyborg. Now, one note about this fight, Carano will have a 2-inch height advantage. And she may have a weight advantage because Ronda Rousey used to fight at 135. She will be moving up at 145 for this fight. So most likely Gina Carano has a much bigger walking weight. What kind of shape they're in, I don't know. I mean, you can watch all the highlight tapes and everything that they're doing for this countdown, but, you know, Matt Brown, our guy over at VSiN, also always says, you know, it's funny watching those because everyone looks great in the gym. Everyone looks in the best shape they've ever looked in their life. Everyone's hands looks fantastic. You know, Gina Carano's coaches are saying she's hitting harder than she ever has. And I mean, hey, I want to believe it. It's just
come on.
Right? I mean, I look good in the gym. You know what I'm saying? So, man, it's hard for me to say this is going to be like a good fight. Like, we're talking about a long layoff for both women. I mean, I know Rousey was in the WWE, so maybe she's a little more conditioned to kind of go out there. But I mean, you know, Carano was in at least acting shape, right? You know, she was in a lot more action type of movies. I know that's a different type of shape, but I mean, maybe they're both conditioned to at least get this done. But the total's only at 1.5, juice to the under, -195. So not Netflix. The odds aren't implying that this is going 5 rounds. The odds are implying this may be a 5-minute thing, which leads us to believe it's going to be classic Rousey getting the armbar, right?
Well, that's what it would say, right? That if it's juice to the under in 7.5 minutes as well, right? So the implication is this is not going to take her very long as over a $5 betting favorite. Get Carano down to the ground, and then armbar comes. If it's the old Ronda with the judo, that's what she was, the best women's MMA practitioner until the head kick heard around Melbourne against Holly Holm. And then, boy, I can't believe it's been 9 years. I watched that fight with all my buddies back in Chicago. I used to host fight parties with Ovi Mahaley and Brian McFadden and Tyler Fulgham. And I'll never forget BMAC, two-time Super Bowl champion by the Steelers, said to me in real time as Ronda was coming out, he goes, "Oh, Dave," he goes, "I don't like that. That's fake bravado." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he was right. It was a kind of Ronda trying to pump herself up to be the person she was before the Ronda Rousey loss. And then she's throwing hands with Amanda Nunes, which was a recipe to get knocked out, which she did. So my question is, if she did that back then against the Lioness and fought hands for some inexplicable reason instead of trying to get the fight down to the ground where she excels, would she do the same with Gina Carano for a round and a half and say, "Okay, I won't take you down right away, Gina, because you and I both know if I take you down, this fight's over. So let's give the people what they want a little bit, and let's draw this fight out a little bit." To me, I'd have to look to the over 1.5 at plus money as the only way I could play it, kind of like Floyd Mayweather did back in the day with Conor McGregor, carried him for the first couple of rounds and then took care of him late, if we all remember that fight. And I'm not saying that she's going to do it uh, on purpose or, or literally carry Gina, but I think it's almost like let me give you a shot for 5 minutes. If you want to throw hands because you haven't been in here in 17 years, I'm expected to win easily. I can do that at any time I want. Maybe I'll give the fans a little bit of some money that they spent to watch this fight and give them a little bit more time at watching two legends inside the octagon.
I don't disagree with that notion. I mean, look, we're not calling shenanigans, but
Right.
MVP Promotions, or I guess it's MV Promotions, kind of has, kind of like you talked about, the Mike Tyson and Logan Paul, or Jake Paul, I don't know which Paul, Mike Tyson and Paul, it had that aura of like, why is this happening? And I don't want to use the word legit or not, but it's kind of like you said, like, why is a guy like Mike Tyson going out there? But the fight carried on, and it went on. And you're right. I mean, I
Went
don't
on too long.
think yeah, I don't think Netflix wants this big main event they've been promoting for months to be done in 2 minutes and just boom, right? So I could see that scenario of like, hey, let's roll around, let's measure each other up. We've both been out of the cage for 10 plus years for each of us. Let's get ourselves to the second round and then we'll really get things going. So I you're right, plus 150, because then you only got to sweat 2.5 minutes.
That's it, the second round.
But man, there's a part of me that thinks, what if Gina Carano lands an actual hand on her?
Oh my goodness.
Are we saying goodnight to Ronda Rousey again?
Here's the thing, though. I could see that there seems like there's a lot of mutual respect between these two ladies, and that they are both kind of selling this to the general public as you get and they're living legends. They are pioneers of the sport. And so we're not trying to poo-poo the fight today, but the way that I see it is almost there's so much mutual respect that, not to say that Ronda could beat her at any time she wants, but that there is a feeling out process. And I don't want to disrespect you by just taking you right down, if I could, with the judo and submit you easily. It's not like the vendetta she had with Misha Tate back in the Strikeforce days, right? There's none of that. So I think that if there's any carrying, it's them almost 5 minutes to watch us again, the nostalgia of seeing them back in there. And then in that second round, maybe you hold your breath for a little bit and we really get down to fighting after we go back out there for round two. I don't know that that's the case in the co-main event with Nate Diaz and Mike Perry. And I don't know if you've been listening to some of this stuff this week. It's kind of bizarre listening to these guys.
That's a choice word, bizarre.
Just bizarre that this is happening. But 4.5, what am I missing? Why am I not playing the under 4.5 rounds here? I don't know who's going to win, but I don't know that these guys have the cardio to be able to go 5 hard rounds in MMA anymore.
I think that's a very valid point. I actually hadn't looked at the total for this fight. I was actually more surprised that Perry is minus 218 in the fight versus Nate Diaz, because this is an MMA fight. It's not a bare knuckle boxing fight.
That's right.
And so, I mean, I don't remember Perry really having this fantastic ground game or submission game. So I feel like if Nate Diaz just wanted to really get this fight done and over with, he could just take him down and use a submission game. But you're right. Once again, two guys, at least from the sport of MMA, removed for quite a while. So yeah, I don't know what I'm missing here either. I think the odds are wrong, but I don't know what this fight is supposed to be. The interviews this week are some of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
So odd. And by the way, look, I like the Diaz brothers, and I talked to Nick back in the day, and I've said this, I think I've told you before, Rob. It's the most bizarre one-on-one interview I've ever had with an athlete. Like it's like if you and I are talking and we're looking at each other, he won't. You're standing right next to him in the microphone, and just no eye contact. I'm like, Nick, I'm right here. I'm right next to you. So they're just they're different cats. I like them. I actually root for those guys actively. And it was such a weird watching them look at each other across the table with Ariel Helwani. And it's almost like they're like, you guys realize you're talking to each other, that you're right across from each other. And
Yeah.
and Nate, by the way, didn't know how many rounds there were in the fight. Said he did not want to go 5 rounds. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm betting the under. I'm betting the under. I don't know who's winning, but these guys do not want to be out there for 25 minutes. That's the vibe I get in that co-main event. So again, if this card here at UFC Vegas 117 doesn't float your fancy and you want nostalgia, then maybe check out this MVP one promotion. I might be doing it with one eye, kind of like, what am I watching? But
Yeah.
I think I will probably check it out a little bit on Saturday night. In the remaining time, Rob, I just want to take a quick look ahead, if we could, to the White House card next month. That's going to be here. Freedom 250, Ilia Topuria against Justin Gaethje is the main event. And I got to tell you, just from the aesthetics of it, if you watch those guys in the stare down, did it strike you like it struck me how much bigger Justin Gaethje is than Ilia Topuria? And I know Ilia doesn't care about that. Max was more rangy, but Justin is thick. And I'm looking at Justin Gaethje now as over a $5 betting underdog. Didn't we just have this conversation a week ago about Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev? And I get it. Topuria is different, but we all thought Chimaev was different. I'm starting to look at that and going, at this weight class, am I really going to fade, just blindly fade Justin Gaethje with the competition he's been in there at this weight class, which includes Khabib Nurmagomedov? I didn't know it didn't go well that day for Justin, but is Ilia Topuria really going to go in there and knock out Justin Gaethje?
I mean, my concern is Gaethje's last performance, while impressive, he beat Paddy Pimblett, but he kind of just went in there like a car crash. Like, he was getting hit in the face, like he wasn't really protecting himself. And I don't know if that was just part of the game plan. Like, hey, I know Paddy's not going to knock me out, so I'm just going to overpower him, because you can't do that with Topuria, right? You can't just wait for shots to hit versus Topuria. But you're right. I mean, I just looked up their height, because you're right. I did notice there was a size difference.
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje's 5'11". Ilia Topuria is only 5'7".
He looks small, man. He looks small.
I mean, he is the smaller man, right? He did move up a weight class in order to be this lightweight champion. It'll be very interesting. I mean, there is an 8-year difference. Justin is getting a little up there. He'll be 37 by the time the fight comes around. 29 years old for Ilia Topuria. You know, it's not a blind fade whatsoever of Topuria or Gaethje in any kind of direction. It's definitely a fight I want to look at, analyze, because, man, Gaethje is just one of the toughest dudes out there, and we just don't know what it looks like. I mean, I guess we've seen Topuria go distance before. It's not the prettiest thing, so I'm curious if 5 rounds of Gaethje just being too tough to put down, can he figure it out? I mean, it'll be a very interesting fight to break down. You're right, though. The odds, my goodness. I mean, plus 550.
That's a lack of respect for the highlight, who's going to be the naturally bigger guy in there. And I'll just say this. You were talking about with Tetsuro Taira. This might be another fight. If it's not going Gaethje's way, he's not going to quit, people. He's going to, like Taira, he's going to fight for your dollar out there. They're going to have to stop it. And you know Gaethje, if you don't knock him out, he ain't going to quit. So you better pack a lunch, Ilia Topuria, because Gaethje is that type of dude, man. He's not looking for a way out of that fight.
As we know, I mean, he was crazy enough to go fist for fist with Holloway, knowing he was losing that fight, and look how it ended up. But because not a lot of people are willing to do that, and he was crazy enough to do it. Not sure it pays off against a guy like Topuria either, but We just know he's tough as nails, and he may have to be saved on his own. But it'll be very interesting when the fight arrives.
One other look ahead here, and we'll break these fights down as we get much, much closer to here to June. But watching us stare down with Cyril Gane against Alex Pereira, and Pereira looks the part of a heavyweight. There's no doubt about it, right? And the line's slight favorite to Alex Pereira at $1.15. Here's all I'm going to say. We all love Poatan. Everybody in the fight game loves Poatan, and I do too. Cyril Gane was beating the tar out of Tom Aspinall until he went Three Stooges. Boop. And then the fight is a no contest. And I'm really pissed off about that because I had Cyril Gane that day. You know that, Rob. And we were halfway home in that fight, man. I mean, I have not seen, if we're being honest, Aspinall look that confused from a two-way fighter. And what I mean by that is Cyril is a level change guy, and he's a guy that can fight you with hands. How do you want to fight, right? So we know that Alex Pereira wants to fight a stand-up. But, man, can't you see Cyril Gane level changing? And all of a sudden, Pereira's defending? And that guy in a phone booth, Cyril Gane, I know it didn't go well against John Jones, but I don't know that Alex Pereira is John Jones at heavyweight. So, man, my early indication is leads towards the Frenchman as much as I love the Brazilian.
I'm going to say one of the favorite things you like to do is I would say let's wait because people, like you said it, people love Alex Pereira. The fans love him, the casual fans, the hardcore fans. They love Alex Pereira. They love the fact there's a chance for history here for a three-time or three-division champion.
Never seen it.
And it's very possible those odds continue to go up for Alex Pereira. And then you're looking at a little plus symbol next to Cyril Gane, and that's you're getting itchy there. And that's when I think it's time. Because you're right. I mean, I love Pereira. He looks the part of the heavyweight. He looks great in his striking and his boxing. I mean, we know his striking is always elite. I'm assuming his power translates. I mean, it's crazy to think this guy was middleweight, and now he's a heavyweight. I'm curious what that weight looks like because Cyril Gane's a big dude, so a thick dude, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting come fight day. I'd say if you're leaning Gane, I would wait because fans are going to go to Pereira. If you like Pereira, this might be the best number you're going to get if you didn't get it already when it was like minus 110 each way.
I have a feeling we'll see if my opinions change here as the numbers change, but I have a feeling I think the sharp side is going to be the Cyril Gane side, but it doesn't tell me my heart's still rooting for Alex Pereira. And listen to all these fighters. It's bizarre. They're like, man, I can't wait to watch Alex become a 3-division champion. Like people are rooting for history. So I get that part of it too. But I think we're forgetting what Cyril Gane was doing to Tom Aspinall until he went Three Stooges. So just keep your eyes down or your hands in Cyril Gane, and you would have been heavyweight champion of the world, right? So that's neither here nor there.
Could they start wearing goggles like in the NBA, and maybe that fixes all the
right? I mean, go Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the goggles here, and maybe we can stop those eye pokes. That's the only thing that's keeping Cyril Gane from being heavyweight champion. Rob, great stuff, man. I think we tackled 3 different cards in one, basically. So that's what we do here at First Strike. So we'll do it again next week. We're going to have the week off next week, so we will be off. But when we come back, obviously we'll be looking ahead a little bit closer to that Freedom 250 card at the White House. What a spectacle that is going to be. So everybody, we appreciate it. Like, subscribe, please, to the First Strike podcast. Tell your friends about it. Tell your family. And we will keep growing this pod. So for Rob Moreno, I'm Dave Ross. Enjoy the fights, and we'll see you in a couple weeks back here. First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.